What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Culture 316. I am one of your hosts and producers, Jordan Nahisi.
Brought to you by Kmo Kenergy. How are you people?
And thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. This is episode 17, if I'm not mistaken. We got a lot going on in this show. Also, just to let y'all know, if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, be sure to give the show a 5 stars. If you're listening or watching on YouTube or any other platform you can visually see us, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe as well. We thank you guys so much for your support. Also, this Sunday, we got the NXT Great American Bash, which means that we will also be having a 316 space as well. We're still trying to work our Discord, so we're kind of unsure of how we're gonna utilize Discord. However, for now, let's do Twitter, and then if there is a Discord thing, we'll announce it closer to the date. But yeah, join us for the NXT Great American Bash this Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's like 7:45. We're gonna be on that space. So be sure to join us. It's gonna be a really, really good time, and we're gonna be giving our predictions later in the show. Um, but yeah, let's not waste any more time. All right, so first things first, we have some non-wrestling but wrestling kind of related news, and it's pertaining to All Elite Wrestling. All right, All Elite Wrestling, they have their non-for-profit kind of outreach arm called AEW Together, and they announced that they have a new partnership, and this partnership is with an organization called Best Buddies. For those of you who don't know what Best Buddies is, it's a global organization that is dedicated to ending social, physical, and economic isolation for more than 200 million people, 200 million individuals with intellectual and developmental impairments. This is coming from the Fightful website, by the way, if you want to look up it for reference. This partnership is made possible through AEW Together, and they have announced some new global ambassadors. These global ambassadors include All Ego Ethan Page, Paul White, formerly known as The Big Show, as well as our favorite Willow Nightingale. Um, it was announced, I believe, on the 22nd. But I kind of wanted to know um how you felt about this partnership and these talents being known as global ambassadors for the company for this particular partnership, and what do you just think about this overall?
I actually love the idea. Um, I love the idea a lot. I was very surprised when you had chose the names, or they have chose the names that they chose because, I mean, obviously, like these are important people, but I feel like if this was like a WWE thing, they definitely would have went with like their faces, like like their company faces.
Absolutely.
And I like the fact that they're giving roles to other people in the company. Not that Willow Nightingale obviously is at the bottom or anything, but it's just that I like the fact that they're giving roles out to others. You said Paul, right? Are we talking about the Big Show when you say that?
Yes, the Big Show.
No comment. Um, actually, yeah. Actually, comment on the Big Show just because, like, is that all he was signed to do? What is his role exactly in AEW? I just had to ask.
I think the last time we checked, he was doing commentary for Dark, but obviously Dark is no longer AEW Dark is no longer a program. So right now, I'm not completely sure. Probably backstage. I don't know. I'm not completely
I'm
sure, like
not
I said.
upset that he's chosen. It's just that, like, I didn't know what he was doing because I know he popped
Mm,
up. He did commentary, like you said, and then he just kind of fade into the abyss. So, is he going to
mm,
be like the Titus O'Neil, I guess, for AEW and just be
uh-huh.
used for representation or just, be an ambassador since he's probably used to all that with WWE? Like, it was just more of a question. I don't want to slander him this time and calling him useless because honestly, I think this is a very big thing. Um, I like the fact that they are shining light on people that had developmental issues. So good on Tony Khan for that. I love the fact that they're going with Willow because like Willow's like AEW's Bailey. You know what I mean? Like
Wow.
she's for everyone. You know what I mean? Like that's where I feel like she's kind of positioned as. She's very likable. She's definitely someone you could like bring around all groups of people just because she just has an inviting, bubbly personality and stuff like
Agreed.
that. Um And I like that considering things worked out that the way that it did for her. It's like, hey, like we didn't just want to treat you like you were just like a last option. We actually do think you have other things that are great for our company to bring to the table. So we like to give you the ambassador position, which I think says a lot about her as a person, her character. So love that. I don't really have too much commentary for Ethan Page because I don't know too much about Ethan Page as a person. I don't really have too much comments on him as a wrestler. But what do you think about, this development with AEW and the three names that were chosen?
So I think that this was actually perfect. Obviously Ethan Page has been depicted as a heel on TV for the majority of his tenure at AEW, and it may have come as a surprise to a lot of people that he was chosen as one of the ambassadors or one of the ambassadors of this partnership. But I'm not surprised. Ethan Page, from what I understand, is a very, 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 very solid, good human being who has been very, very much involved with AEW together, which is their outreach department. He's been a part of that since like day one. He's always been very, very pivotal in that. And so him being named as a global ambassador comes as no surprise to me because in addition to him being a great on-screen character, he's just an awesome person. So shout out to All Ego for that. Now, the Paul White thing, I actually understand. I'm going to tell
Hmm.
you why. He was also a global ambassador for WWE for the Special Olympics.
Was he really?
So, yes, he was. So this
Oh.
makes sense. He has experience being an
Oh.
ambassador. And so, obviously Ethan Page is he's not a new talent, but in comparison to Paul White, he is a newer talent. And when you're putting together these outreach programs, you want to be surrounded by people who have the experience. And so Paul
Mm.
White, formerly known as the Big Show, is someone who definitely has global ambassador experience, especially for a large, people-facing professional wrestling company. And Willow Nightingale, she is I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she is the reigning and defending New Japan Strong Women's Champion. She is also the winner of the Owen Hart Women's Cup this year. And so she's been put in very, very big positions in the company in the ring. And on top of that, she's also just a great bubbly personality. The parallel that you drew between Willow and Bailey, I think it was genius. But Willow has been put in some big spots over the past year as it pertains to AEW, and so this comes as no surprise either. So I'm not surprised at this as well. Overall, I just think that this is just super dope. It's super good. Anytime where a wrestling company gives back, it's always great, and this also just kind of builds on, the stuff that Cody was doing when he was there. And, they're really, really committed to really being about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is one of those ways. So I'm just really, really excited for that. So, did you have anything else to say? Or we?
No, I love that. I didn't even think about Cody. And it just opened up the whole like door, I guess, in my head.
Mhm.
Just imagining like would he have been the face of like all this stuff if he were here? Like I wonder what he would have done. But I like that they're still continuing it while he's not there. But I have no further comments.
Yeah, but we want to hear how you guys feel about this AEW Together Best Buddies partnership. Let us know in the comments below. But we're going to be moving right along. So, uh, on the flip side about AEW, it seems as if there has been a general disdain, I would say, as it pertains to the booking of the women in AEW. Um, and it came up last night. Uh, Hold on, I'm trying to find the tweet, but it came up last night. Uh, as it pertains to the match between Taya Valkyrie and Britt Baker. And we're not going to get super duper into that, but there was a sign that said book women's wrestling better, or women's wrestling needs to be better, something along those lines. And we thought that that was just kind of like a one incident thing. And then we saw Soraya of the Outcasts like a very, very interesting tweet. She said, in the tweet is from Ibu of Wrestling Purists. He
My
says,
homie, by the way,
kind of
shout out to him. Go ahead.
kind of feels like the out kind of feels like the Outcast story was a big waste of time. Obviously, there's no controlling the hater injury, but we didn't get blood and guts out of it. the whole surrounding division paused, and it feels like very little was accomplished broadly in the first half of the year. So I want to kind of present to you or ask you, is the AEW women's division in trouble?
I've always felt like the AEW women's division was always booked underwhelmingly, is the best way to
Mm,
put it. Like they will give us some storylines that like they start off really good or some concepts that I do enjoy, but then with execution it just usually falls flat. And it's either one or the other. Like they'll have something that's cooking and like unfortunately it's just not two very good wrestlers. Or for example, like let's just use Jade for example sake, because she was the longest reign champion I believe that they had. I think she was for she had that shit longer than Britt Baker. A lot of people were complaining that her reign was just boring, like she just had a Goldberg booking, which I don't think was the biggest issue, but the issue was that like it didn't seem like she was really developing as a character that much,
mm,
and they attempted to do little things with her like tax on some friends, like they had the baddies and like it seemed like a wonderful concept. Oh, let's get the fans involved and let's
yeah,
go set up a baddie circle and let's have Jay set up with these two bad bitches or whatnot. And you thought that off of that there would have been like a bigger story that would have evolved then to have elevated like Red Velvet and Kira Hogan, but like nothing like came out of it really. It was just like I think at some point Kira faded first, and then at some point later on, Red Velvet faded, and then Jade lost the belt, and then like that was that. You know what I mean?
right,
Um, that's just like an example I'm using, just because like there was more you could have done with someone who already like had everything needed
right,
in Jade. But she just
absolutely,
didn't. You didn't give it all that she could to have made it like a really historic reign. It was just good for like the optics. That's how I feel about the Outcasts. The Outcasts, like visually, they look great together. It makes sense, you know. You had Paige, a very outspoken individual. She was always outspoken since she was on WWE, and she kind of like had an extension from what she had going on for that little short friendship she had with with AJ Lee, in her time in WWE when they were together. That's what I was looking at when I was looking at the Outcasts. I was like, oh, two people who aren't like, at least for their time, they weren't like normal, quote unquote, I guess is the best way to
uh-huh,
put it. And they put together three people that kind of seemed like oddballs in Soraya, Ruby from the Riot Squad, and then Tony Storm. And it's like it looked great. Like them next to each other, it looks great, but it just kind of came off confusing to me
mm,
because I didn't understand what they were exactly mad about at some point.
right,
And it didn't seem like what they were fighting for at some point. And I can't tell if it's like an issue amongst just factions. Does WW not WWE does AEW suck at? Like, do they just not know what to do with with factions in general, or is it just with the females that they just don't know how to tell stories? Like, I can't think of one AEW female storyline that like I thought I had to go revisit it again. And I
mm,
thought that I was gonna get that with Jamie and Tony, and even then, so that kind of fell a little flat to me. Like it felt like it should have been more important because I'm like, oh, it writes itself, like they're two best friends.
right,
But I didn't get that. So I just think it's a issue of storytelling. It's an issue of booking. I feel like Tony will pick his favorites and then let them kind of carry out, but I don't think they know how to build a division to where they could tell a compelling story, but other people look strong and it makes sense on a logical standpoint. And I don't know who could help him with that. Like, I feel like they need to bring in a talent with experience. And I don't know who we could suggest to help, but I feel like they need a veteran, a female veteran, the same way they have like Jericho coaching people over there or CM Punk coaching people over there in between. I feel like they desperately need a female veteran to come in where that's just her role.
mm,
Like she's been around the block. She knows how to create characters, what this person could use to tweak here, and let's I from the last interaction I had with a few wrestlers, they don't really have any guidance back there with the female division. Like Tony Khan's doing the booking, but they're all like leading each other.
Mm.
So I don't know who to exactly point the finger at, but but there needs to be order and there needs to be someone leading that's not Tony. That's how I feel. Long rant, but how do you feel?
I have a couple hot takes on this because I feel like a lot of this is rooted in the AEW culture, right? John Moxley said it best when there was that whole conflict when CM Punk kind of departed from the company. He says, winning this AEW World Championship, it means that you were great on your own terms. And essentially, he was implying that AEW was an environment where you can be as creative as you want. You can throw stuff into the wall until it sticks. Now, everybody complains about Vince McMahon and Triple H and the powers that be at WWE because there's a little bit more of a creative hold that these guys have. And rightfully so, the way that they do business or the way that they do creative and ideas, it may not work for everybody. But
Mhm.
if and when you leave that environment and you decide you want to be the person who is 100% in control of your ideas and the execution of it, there's nobody to blame but yourself. There's no there's nobody around that you can blame anymore.
No.
And sometimes Vince was wrong. Sometimes Vince was right. And we're starting to see that play out in real time in AEW. Here's what I will say with the booking of the AEW women's division. And I think I'm going to start chronologically because it started off when AEW kind of first started, and I believe Rio was the first AEW World Women's Champion, and then next thing you know, Nyla Rose won the championship. It was either that or it was the other way around.
Yeah,
And
it was
while
Nyla then Sheeta.
Okay, yeah, no, it wasn't Sheeta. It was Nyla and then Riho, and
No,
then I
but
think
Sheeta was
Sheeta.
third, right?
Yeah, I think
No?
Sheeta was third. Yeah, yeah, because Sheeta beat Nyla.
Yeah.
Um, and they were having good matches, right? They were having TV time, but nothing was resonating because they weren't creating stars. I feel like Nyla was really, really good, and she's an innovator, and she made history by being the first transgender to win a world championship. And I will always have that love and that respect for her and that admiration
Mhm.
for her. However, it felt like the division itself was lacking umph. So then we go into the era of the DMD, right? Where Britt Baker is front and center and everybody's kind of following her. And to be honest, the era in which Britt Baker was front and center was probably the hottest the women's division ever was, right? Her feud with Thunder Rosa, like her matches, like this is when the division is white hot, and it's mostly because she's white hot. And then now you have Jamie Hayter kind of being aligned with her, and then you have that storyline going on. And then we skip to Thunder Rosa winning the title. Then Thunder Rosa has to drop the title because she's injured. Tony Storm wins the title. Um, and then that kind of lays the foundation for this kind of era that we're in now with the Outcast and stuff like that. Um, and it's going the way that it's going, right? And so that has led us to where we are now. So the women's division has gone through a lot of ebbs and flows, and yet it still feels like it's missing something. I don't know what that thing is. I continue to watch the product, and there are times and there are moments where there are, I feel like Jade was like a white hot point, and I feel like we're actually missing Jade. I feel like that's a big part of it. Is that a lot of people are missing Jade,
But she
and
don't miss us, and she let us
yo,
know.
sis is living her best life. Okay, she's on some beach chair with her 10-pack abs, just living her best
To
life.
back
But
abs.
Ab speaking in tongues, bro. She's just chilling. But I feel like the division misses her. But I think it's more than just a talent issue. Like that tweet said, like that storyline didn't really have any payoff. But now the question has to ask itself, is this the fault of AEW? Is this the fault of the women? Because now we have to ask ourselves who's really in creative control, right? If you have the creative control that you say that you have, then wouldn't shouldn't you have had a blood and guts match as well? You know what I'm saying? So then there's that aspect. However, I do want to bring up a very, very interesting point with Soraya, and then I'm going to move over into the factions thing because I feel like the factions thing is very, very important. I remember when Soraya first got to AEW, and it was the bees, like it was the bee's knees. It was like she could do. I don't even want to say she could do nothing wrong. It was just there was so much hype around her and around the fact that Soraya was back in wrestling, and then fans just kind of flipped on her, which I thought was pretty fickle, if you ask me. But I remember when Paige was doing interviews. Oh yeah, WWE held me back, and WWE did this and that and the third. And then now here we are, and there isn't that much of an approval for you anymore. Like if you told me a year ago that Soraya would be kind of in this point, I wouldn't have believed you because of just how much momentum she had versus where she is now. But now look, but then once again, like if you're gonna talk about a Vince McMahon or a Triple H and how you were held back there, are you gonna do the same for AEW? I just want to know if the energy is gonna be kept, or is it just different now because you're in a different place? So then there's that.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, yeah, go ahead. My bad, my bad.
You're good. Now with the factions thing, that was another thing because I feel like the only factions that have really gotten over in AEW are the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club. And what's the biggest glaring similarity between the two is that you have people in both factions who have been in factions. John Moxley, The Shield, like the Elite, Kenny, the Bucks, Hangman, these guys have all been in factions before. And because of that, they know how to build a faction. And I think that that's the reason why these factions have gotten over. But I feel like with the factions in AEW, the biggest problem is just that you don't know who's who. You don't know who plays what role, right? And then if you do, like, you don't know who plays what role, and then there's other factions that are just too many people or they're just too saturated, right? Like for me, right? I'll give you an example. I'm looking at Bullet Club Gold, right? I'm looking at Jay White. I'm looking at Juice Robinson. I'm looking at the Gun Club, right? Jay White is a Triple Crown IWGP champion. Juice Robinson was a US IWGP champion. The Guns have held the tag titles. Why? And granted, I love the Jay White Juice Robinson match versus FTR, but why are they going for the tag titles when there's already a tag team that's designated to win tag team championships? Why isn't Jay White going after CM Punk? Why isn't Juice Robinson going after the TNT championship? You have your mid card guy in Juice, you have your main event guy in Jay, you have your tag team, but we don't have the roles correct. Then we have House of Black. There are world trios champions, right? But there's so much flexibility in that faction, right? You could have Alistair go for the TNT title or the international title. You can have Buddy and Brody go for the tag titles. You could have Julia go for the women's title, but you just keep them as a trios. And it's just like, okay, that's fine. But it's like you're keeping them as a trios champion, as trios champions, but then you're teasing this Andrade and Alistair feud. So it's like, are now the trios championships on hold now because so then you have that. Then you have the Jericho, what was it? Jericho Appreciation Society. You had Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia. It's like, why do you have two people in the protege role? You only need one. Then you have uh, uh the tag team. I forgot the name of it. Then on top of that, you have Anna Jay and Ty Conti. And it's like, okay, you can put two women together, but it's like you don't have tag titles available. So there's a ceiling on that. And it's just like, why can't you just put one next to the other, make one the valet of the other, and then make one of them go after the TBS championship or the women's championship? But it's like there's so many factions and it gives people screen time, and that's great, but you're not giving anybody a role. And because you're not giving people roles, a lot of these factions don't have the value that they can have. Because you looking over, because we was cats, the tweet came out, I forgot about, I think Brody King was like, when the tweet about Edge and Damian when Judgment Day formed, and they were like, oh, when you try to order House of Black on wish.com. But like you look at Judgment Day now, everybody got a role. everybody got some gold. Dom is the NXT North American champion. Rhea has been holding that World Women's title for a bit now. Finn is about to go into SummerSlam and challenge Seth for the world title. Damian is Mr. Money in the Bank. Everybody has a role. Everybody has a role.
And like that's
Easy, Dom.
expected to WWE because like the second you see someone like you see two people together, you're like, all right, so the formula with these two people is that they're gonna grow with each other, but they're probably gonna butt heads and they're gonna end up going against one another. Like that like something is going to happen, like it serves a purpose. You know what I
Right.
mean? You saw like the lineup of all four of them for Judgment Day, and we didn't know what the fuck Edge was doing for quite some time. Let's be honest, but it took on a life of its own, and like you just said, like all four of them is doing something, and it does feel like constantly like that is what's happening, or they just do this annoying thing in AEW where like they put a faction together, but then they kind of forget about them when they
Uh-huh.
don't know what to do. And it makes me think like what's going on in the drawing board? Is there a drawing board? Like does he just let people bring like I feel like what happens is that like there's probably like one day out the week where everyone like writes down an idea on a piece of paper. Tony Khan puts it in a fucking jar, and then like he just takes it out one day, and it says, you know what, this sounded nice. This just
Right.
sounded nice. Let's add that into the show. And I just feel like
Right.
it just moves like that. Like they don't plan anything out long term. Like Hunter style is I'm going to create this, I'm gonna put these two together or against one another. And this might just be like a 3, 4, 5 pay-per-view long story. Or like with the bloodline. That shit went on for 3 years. It's still technically kind of going.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like he'll map it out. Even if there's an injury, like Hunter always has like a good backup plan or a decent enough backup plan. But AEW doesn't prepare itself for that either. So like there's so many like holes in their plan, but I don't even know if there was a plan. So that's why I said I don't know who to blame. Do I blame Tony? Who? No, I see you
Keep going.
pointing
Keep
your
going.
finger.
I
No.
was gonna say you just mentioned who the X Factor was, and the X Factor is Triple H. The X Factor in all this is Triple H. I love Tony Khan. I think he's very, very passionate. He loves the business. I think he's done a lot of great things with AEW, and I'm super grateful for what they're doing for wrestling. But when we're talking about factions, it takes one to know one, and this is a man
Yeah.
who has been in the top factions in this industry. And has been associated with people who have been in the top fashions of this industry. He was in DX. He was in DX as a protege. He was in DX as a leader. He was in Evolution. He brought back DX. He was in the corporate ministry. This is a guy who has been in great factions as well as some pretty questionable ones. He's been around the block to know what works and what doesn't work. And because of that, this is the reason why an Adam Cole can go to NXT and the Undisputed Era looks like the next big thing. This is the reason why you could have a Bloodline storyline go for 3 years. This is the reason why Judgment Day can completely rebrand and go from the laughing stock of the company to being the hottest thing right next to the Bloodline. This is the reason this is the reason why Toxic Attraction was Toxic Attraction. This is the reason why the New Day was the new, like, come on now. Like,
It's
you
weird because
have
the more
some
you keep talking about it, I'm like, damn, WWE really like did a lot, like accomplished a
a
lot
lot. And
in
until you
comparison to
say it all,
AEW. Mm-hmm.
and I'm just talking about factions. Like when you just
Yeah, I know.
write down all the factions in WWE that have interfaced with Hunter at some point in time, it's like, okay, clearly this man knows what he's doing. But like, I think it takes that. I don't think that AEW's obviously. I don't think AEW's going to get a Triple H, but they need somebody in there who is familiar with successful factions, and they need to be able to build accordingly. As much as I love Chris Jericho was never in a faction. Before AEW, he did not. He was not in a faction. He never led a faction. He was in a tag team.
I was
He
thinking
never
about
was
that.
in a
Yeah.
faction.
I
He
was
was
like,
in a
what
tag
was his
team.
tag team partner?
He was the Big Show was a tag team partner. Edge at one point was a tag team
And
partner.
that's why it's not
Uh,
sticking. Cause like he's used to just I mean, this is a controversial take, but I feel like Jericho like was top three with like in conversation with The Rock. I feel like Chris Jericho is just used to being a man with a mic. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of hard to have so many bodies around you and give everyone spotlight when you're just again known to be the man with the mic. You know what I mean? Everyone's waiting to hear what
Right.
you gotta say. There's a reason why when MJF's on stage, they don't put mad people on stage because they're gonna fade into the background with the crowd if you let
Right.
MJF start talking. Like he just steals a lot of the show. So to put MJF even in a faction, which is why they only gave him Wardlow, that made sense. It served its purpose.
Right.
You can't do that with freaking Jericho, man. Like he just absorbs all the attention in the room. Like I said earlier in our group chat, only Sammy came out like being successful. Like he took the Spanish God role, and I never heard a lick of Spanish out of that boy's mouth, but he is that guy.
Not even a hola. Not even
Not
one
even the Ola, but
hola.
he pulled a Brazilian. So what?
Yeah,
I
that's a
can't make this
fact.
shit up. But
But even
yeah,
but even
good.
with that, right? Even with like Sammy, right? That was like a point from the inner circle, right? It was like you had
Hmm.
Sammy, you had Proud and Powerful, you had Jake Hager, right? To be honest, that was probably the best constructed faction. You had your enforcer, you had your protege, and you had your tag team. Boom. But then, and they had good stories. But like, why isn't Proud and Powerful tag champs?
And why
They
didn't
they
Private Party manage to get belts either? Those were the first two tag teams I expected to be in contention. Like they put on like a banger. Like to me, like
uh-huh.
one of my favorite matches to revisit is definitely when Private Party went against fucking what should we call it? Is it Proud and
Proud and
Powerful?
Powerful, yeah.
Oh my god! Like it's like a tongue twister. But like
Yeah.
I felt like those the same way we came in with the four pillars with Darby Allin, CME, and all of them. Like I felt like they were like the four pillars of tag teams, and it's so weird how they just ignored them completely when they had so much potential. Like Private Party, I know they look nothing like the Hardy Boys, but they gave me like the essence of them in terms of just being cool as shit and like
They look
someone
like
that
Hardy
like
Boys.
yeah, of course they're Hardy Boy fans, but I'm just saying like they would have served the same purpose that the Hardy Boys served for our like era growing up. Like,
Right.
oh, these guys are young, they're cool, they make like they get bitches, they're drinking, you know what I mean? They coming out clubbing to
Right.
their own fucking song and shit. Like they could have served that purpose, but it's criminal, Tony, criminal that you did not give that to Santana and Ortiz. Criminal because they could have put them belts on the map, but they also could have told mad stories considering they were part of Jericho's faction. Like there's so much you
Right.
could have done with that, but it's such a lost opportunity, and I don't get the logic. I don't.
But
Damn, I thought this topic
we
would
were
be 2 minutes, and we've been
we
popping off for a good like eight.
like a good 20.
Oh,
But
20.
like we want to know. So I mean, the I we were talking about originally AEW's women's division, but I guess this has blossomed into an AEW booking segment. But let us know how you feel about the AEW women's division in the comments below. But we're gonna move on. So uh, it seems as if WrestleMania 41 may have a host city, according to SE Scoops. Minnesota is being strongly considered as the host city for WrestleMania 41. I wanted to know if that's the move. Should WWE go in that direction? Should Minneapolis, it will probably be Minneapolis, Minnesota. Should Minneapolis, Minnesota be the host site for WrestleMania 41?
I took the time to Google things to do in Minneapolis because it's part of the experience when you travel out. Like you put your good money out to go to a
Mm-hmm.
different state for WrestleMania, that people plan activities for like the whole weekend, depending on whether you're getting the access and the whole bundle package or whatever. And the following things I'm seeing are like a brewery tour, the Minneapolis Institute of Art. I don't know what kind of art I want. I want to know from Mississippi, or Minnesota. Target Field. There's a sculpture garden. There's another art center. There's a theater. There's a museum. Like, do you get where you think where I'm getting at? Like, this is not
Yeah.
like lit energy. It's not. And I just feel like it's just odd to me just because Minnesota's not really known to me as like a big wrestling town. Um, and B, it's just like people are gonna be like locked basically in their hotel rooms until it's time for the show, which I
Right.
think makes again the fans lose out on the experience or maybe not seek the urgency to want to get their tickets. So I think it's odd. Um, when's the last time? Is this their first time using Minneapolis for WrestleMania? When's the last time they traveled out here?
I
If
don't
they
think
ever
they've
did.
ever done I don't
They
think they
never
have
did.
done. I don't think they've done WrestleMania in
I just
Minnesota.
think
I'm
it's
gonna check.
weird. It's so weird. I don't like it. There's some outdoor attractions if you want to go see a river fall. Ooh. They said you could go shopping. Where else? Like,
Why would you
what
say
am I
"ooh" like
supposed
that?
to do? It's
Ooh.
just like an aquarium. I could do all this in Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
All of this in Long Island. This is just and Long Island's trash. As a person that lives in Long Island, is trash. So I'm telling you, you can do the same activities in Minnesota as in Long Island. It's garbage. It's hot garbage. I. What do you think about this?
So here's so I'm reading up on more details, and I think that the reason why they're eyeing Minneapolis is because of the stadium. It's the U.S. Bank Stadium, seats 73,000 people for football. Obviously, it's a city that at least have rarely visited for WrestleMania. I don't think that
How does
they
that help
actually
you?
have visited for WrestleMania at all.
How does it help you?
Um, the only thing that I know that I would personally want to do is something pertaining to Prince, because Prince is from Minnesota and he has like an estate out there. I think it's called Paisley Place, if I am not Paisley Park. Yes, he has like his home and his studio is like based out there. So I think that's a really really cool thing. Outside of that
Hmm.
though, I don't know. And I honestly don't believe that wrestling fans are going to be interested in that as well.
Hell
Um,
no.
but but what I will say is, I mean, I think I was telling Mo beforehand. I was like, I feel like if you're gonna do WrestleMania in a place like Minnesota, you might as well do it in like Chicago because it's gonna be
Yes.
cold. You might as well do it in a place that's like a historic wrestling city. Um, but they don't consult me for things like this. But yeah,
They
I
should.
don't know how I feel about Minnesota. I guess it's one of those things where we're just gonna have to like see, because like I beats me. I don't know what I think it's just a matter of just finding a stadium that's able to house all of whom is coming. So I think that's all that I can say about that. But we want to know how you guys are feeling about WrestleMania potentially going to Minnesota. Let us know in the comments how you feel. But we are going to move on to the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
segment of the show, because this Sunday is the NXT Great American Bash live from Texas. We
Yep.
got a card full of some pretty dope, interesting matches. Um, we're gonna start with the pre-show match. We have Metaphor, which is Noam Dar, Oro Mensa, Jakara Jackson, love Jakara Jackson, and Lash Legend versus Nathan Frazier, Dragon Lee, Valentina Feroz. I don't know if this is actually the name, and Ulissa Leon. Wanted to know, who do you have for this?
I don't know who those last two females are. Those are Brazilians.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Valentina sounds mad familiar. I feel like I saw her on the timeline.
Hmm.
Well, first and foremost, happy to see that Jakara and Lash Legend are finally getting
Popping
pay per
out,
view
yeah.
screen time. Even if it is on a pre show, shout out to them just because I've been wanting to see more of them. So good for them. If I had to choose who's this gonna go to.
Hmm.
See, I've been hearing about this how this little faction over here, this whole thing with Elisa and Valentina. I've been feeling like this. I've been hearing a lot of energy for those
Hmm.
two. So I don't know if they're trying to build the ladder or it's for Noam Dar, Oro, Jakara, and Lash Legend because they've been working on them for some months now, right?
Hmm.
As a
Yeah.
group,
Yep.
I'm gonna go with them. I'm gonna go with them. Yeah, metaphor.
I'm gonna go with Metaphor as well. As you said, the Jakara and Lash are two people that I've been keeping my eye on. They're super dope. Oro Mensa and Noam Dar is just actually very entertaining. He's been very entertaining since NXT UK. I remember him in the Supernova sessions. His story that he's been having with Nathan Frazier is very entertaining for the NXT Heritage Cup. I predict that Metaphor is going to take the victory, take the W. But I am very, very pleased that Jakara and Lash are getting their shine. We're going to work our way from
Hmm.
the bottom of the card to the top. So we're going to start with Gabe Stevenson, I believe it is, or Gable Stevenson versus Baron Corbin. Who do you have?
I'm gonna go with Gable Stevenson.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. I think Corbin's here just to put people over, but I am interested. I do like Corbin over in NXT so far. What do you
yeah.
think?
I like Gable Stevenson. I love how this was a less than 1 week buildup because Gable Stevenson went on NXT television this past week and was going to give his big decision on if he was going to stay in NXT full time or if he was going to go back to college
Mm-hmm.
to compete or possibly go to the Olympics to win another gold medal. And then
Mm-hmm.
this versus Baron Corbin kind of came up. Um, Gable's a very, very talented guy. The stuff that I've seen from him is very, very impressive. However, Baron Corbin getting back into NXT was probably the best thing that's happened to him in a very, very long time because we're seeing the real Baron Corbin or the Baron Corbin that I think we were all kind of gravitating towards when he was in NXT with that lone wolf gimmick. And the vignettes that he's been getting has been pretty, really, really cool.
I
So
agree.
I'm glad that he's back, but I definitely see Gable going over in this match. Next, we have Dominic Mysterio versus Mustafa Ali versus Wesley. Who do you have for the NXT North American Championship? Who do you have?
I think they wouldn't give the belt to Dominic just to make him lose it the same week. I think that's kind of wild.
Mm-hmm.
So I think by default it's gonna go to Dominic. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to put him in NXT just because I think I was having a discussion with Zaire about this. Now I didn't get to unfortunately see him win the belt, but I was just like when I got the message saying that like he got the belt, I'm like that like why? And I was at first mad at it. And Zaire said no, it's brilliant because like, think about it. Like, this is Rey Mysterio's seed, and we already hate him just because he was pretty much expedited to being at the top just by
Mm-hmm.
default, just because of who he came from, right? And we're at a point where we can't stand Dominic Mysterio to the point that he just like exists and we don't let him talk. We just start
Right.
yelling until he may possibly give up or in hopes that he gives up,
Right.
and we're upset at him because like you skipped developmental, you skipped all the hard parts that everyone else had to do to get here. You just got here because of your father. Boo, fuck you. You know what I mean? And it's just like now you did what we wanted you to do, but not in the way we wanted you to do. And you go down to NXT and you bullshit your way to get a title. And it's actually a brilliant way to build a heel. Like I actually like when he explained it like that, I'm like, you know what? This is actually kind of awesome, and it's nice too because Dominic's not a bad wrestler. We all seen the way he works. He actually is lovely, and we expect no less considering that he's Rey Mysterio's son. So I like the fact that not only are they building a heel that we're going to despise as a product of this, but um we are making him do the hard work and while also giving light to other workers. Like it's going to bring more attention to the show because even though we don't like him, people are going to watch just because
Absolutely.
we're seeing main roster names on a NXT pay per view. So I love this setup, and I'm gonna still give it to Dominic, and I'm expecting a damn good match out of it with obviously like an interference causing Dominic to win. Yeah,
I agree with you on that. I think there's a lot of before I give my official prediction, I do want to say I feel
yeah,
like there's so many layers to Dominic being champion that make this so interesting. Number one, it seems as if winning NXT championships is like a rites of passage for people in the Judgment Day, right?
yes,
Finn was a former NXT champion. Damian was a former North American champion. Rhea Ripley was one of the longest reigning NXT women's champions. Also, was the only woman to hold, I believe, the NXT Women's Championship and the NXT UK Women's Championship. So Dominic kind of being the
yeah,
understudy of it all, kind of completing the four of them being NXT champions in some way, shape, or form, I think is dope. I think that the Judgment Day presence on NXT is so necessary.
mm-hmm.
Putting the NXT product next to arguably the hottest faction in WWE Now they're the hottest faction because the bloodline is broken up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Arguably the bloodline, arguably the hottest faction. I think it does well for the NXT product. We saw Rhea coaching that young woman on NXT. I don't want to mess up her name, so I'm not going to say it. Obviously Dominic winning the NXT championship, it's putting him in a position where he gets to grow and blossoms and develops. So it does good for Dominic while positioning that NXT product next to a hot heel and a hot faction like the Judgment Day and Dominic Mysterio.
Mhm.
Also, we do have to point out Wes Lee. We don't talk about him as much as we should because when MSK kind of broke up because of Nash, I forgot his name already. The other member of
Nash
MSK
Carter.
was, yes, he was released from WWE for things we will not talk about on this show. But I think there was like that fear that he was kind of going to fade into the background, and he didn't. He stepped up and became one of the best NXT North American champions of all time. I consider him and Adam Cole to be the best. Great matches, great
Ooh,
defenses, great stories.
that's a
Obviously, him being in the
strong
ring with
comment.
it. Listen, I'm
Him and
telling
Adam
you,
Cole. Now, above or below Miss Gargano now? Because you can't just mention Adam Cole without Johnny wrestling.
true, but I don't think that Johnny Gargano was a top five. I don't think he was a. I think Johnny Gargano was just Mr. NXT. He was a Triple Crown champion, and we don't know him for his reign as a North American champion. We know him
Oh,
for
that's
his
a
reign
bold
as an
take.
NXT champion
That's a
and
bold
for his feud
take.
with DIY.
That's a bold take.
It's a bold take, but I stand by
Yeah.
it. But
The
Wes,
Gargano
I
fans
think
gonna be in your inbox. I would close
listen,
them shits if I were you.
I'm about to make my page private, so I don't even mind. But I think that Wesley has done a phenomenal job, and then obviously Mustafa Ali. He was so underutilized on the main roster. I'm just happy to see him in the spot right now, and I think this is going to be a great match. But I think Dominic is going to win.
That's true.
So
I
there's
just wish
that.
they would do more with Ali. But they
Yeah, me
are
too.
doing some with Ali, but I just feel like he's never going to have his moment. But I think you covered it several shows ago about Ali's purpose, so I keep remembering that when I get upset about how he's presented, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Moving
But
on.
moving on to the next match, we have Blair Davenport versus Roxanne Perez. This is a non-title match. I believe it's a no disqualification match. I got I think I'm gonna get I think I'm gonna get Blair. I think I'm gonna get Blair Davenport for this one.
I want
What
Blair
about you,
because she
Charles?
has more personality than Roxanne.
Same.
Like, I like Roxanne. It's just she doesn't ooze to me champion vibes yet, and it's gonna
Mm,
take more growth from her. It's like we love her, but then I feel like from the moment she opens her mouth, I just feel like I'm dealing with a child, not a grown ass woman. And
mm,
I'm not, no disrespect to her. It's just the way she conducts herself in the small baby voice she has. And it doesn't help that she's small, so it just makes her just seem like a small girl, even though yes she is young. But Blair, I actually enjoy Blair. I liked her work in the UK. I liked her short run in AEW. I love her personality. I love her personality, and I feel like um it's easier to build a division when you have a heel in the driver's seat. But she
mm-hmm.
brings like a little more edge, I feel like. So I would like for her to, if optional, obviously to have the belt. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
I'm gonna go with Blair as well. Obviously, because of her extended absence, she has some unfinished business, and I would love to see her kind of complete that and do her thing. And I feel like
Hmm.
it's gonna start with this match. So that I got Blair. I got Blair Davenport for this match.
Hmm.
Um, but moving on to the next match, we have for the NXT Tag Team Championships, we got Gallus versus the
Hmm.
D'Angelo family. Um, I want to know who you think is gonna take this.
The Wolfgang, sorry, Gallus, or go with D'Angelo family. I'm gonna go D'Angelo family,
Mm.
but that's
I'm gonna go.
because I'm biased.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I feel it. No, no, no. I feel it. I'm gonna go D'Angelo family as well, and also the build up for this story has been really about Tony D'Angelo coming back. For
Mhm.
from his from his quote unquote prison bid, but um, I feel like it would all go to waste if they were to lose. So I think that the D'Angelo family is going to win this match.
Okay.
So moving on, we have for the NXT Women's Championship, we have a submission match. Tiffany Stratton versus Thea Hale. Who do you have?
I'm gonna go with Tiffany.
Hmm.
Even though I actually really like Thea Hale, I feel like whoever is working backstage, Sean, I suppose, um, looks at Tiffany Stratton pretty high, and I feel like they're still trying to build her as a convincing champion.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to pause and ask, how do you feel about her championship run? Like, do you feel like since seeing her with the belt, she's done anything with the belt, or that she's seemed like she's ready to carry on this responsibility with the belt?
I think she's ready. Um, I think she's ready. However, I think like just based off of like her interviews and stuff that she said in the past, like I feel like those comments have kind of set the tone for who she is, not as a character, but just as a performer and a person. She knows
Okay.
she has work to do. She knows she has a way to go. And I don't think that she's coming out here just like, yeah, I'm better than everybody else. From a character perspective, yes, because she's a heel. But I think that her understanding that she has to grow kind of like frames it as like, okay, if this is kind of like her standard, then I think that for somebody who is dedicated to her growth, I think that Tiffany is doing a good job. And on top of that, considering the circumstances that came from it, I feel like she's doing the best that she can. Right? Like the moment that Mandy got released, and I guess they didn't put Gigi and JC into that main event scene, it's like one of those like next person up kind of situations. And I feel like she stepped up to the plate and she's done what she could do. But
I agree.
I like you said, I like the Hale as well, but I just feel like Tiff got it. You know what I mean? And I feel like she's gonna win this match.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like it. I like it very much.
And the next and the final match of the night is Carmelo Hayes versus Ilya Dragunov for the NXT Championship. This is gonna be a banger, but I want to know who you got.
This is hard. 'Cause every time I look at like our Carmelo setup, I'd be sitting there thinking like, all right, like he has to lose the belt at some point. Like this man like
Hmm.
needs to go up to the main roster. Like he needs to
Agreed.
just go right now. But then I think about like the placements of things, and I'm like, all right, we're getting closer to SummerSlam. SummerSlam's gonna happen, and then what after would you put Carmelo in to like send him off to the main roster for? So I
Hmm.
think he might hold on to it longer, and I feel like he may stay in NXT up and through, and we'll see him maybe at the Royal Rumble.
That's a really good prediction. I could actually see that happening as well. And I agree. I think that Carmelo Hayes is going to win the NXT champion, like retain the NXT championship. I don't think
Yeah.
that Carmelo is going to drop that title until there is someone else in the company being NXT who can win the NXT championship. So
Someone new or someone that's already like being built.
anybody,
Like it's just
anybody. I feel like it just needs to be someone. The only way that Carmelo is going to drop that title is if it's to someone who, by the time he's ready to drop it, is ready to be the NXT champion. Right now, I don't see anybody.
no, I feel like it's like I didn't mind the hot potato between him and Braun because it's just like those were like your top guys of that
The top
company
guys,
that
yeah.
made that belt look fucking amazing. Like unless like maybe you bump Wesley up or something. I don't know. And that's the only other way.
Wes Wesley having a nice little underdog story would be cool. He could turn himself into a triple crown champion. I think I would be down for that. That'd be a nice story. So,
Yeah.
but that
I fuck with
that
it.
concludes the match predictions. But let us know in the comments below how do you feel about these matches for NXT the Great American Bash. And once again, we're gonna be on our Twitter space during that time. So yeah, be sure to join us. But anyway, that concludes our show for the day. Thank y'all so much for joining, and we'll see you guys next week.